Hey everybody, welcome to the show today. This is the Tom Rowland Podcast brought to you by brite. We have a fantastic guest for you today. If you like YouTube and you like fishing on YouTube, you're probably going to know our guest, Life by the Bow. Clay Cowart and his wife, Stephanie, are the hosts of Life by the Bow, and they just had a brand new baby. Lots of changes going on in their life, but the thing that is staying consistent is that they're making great content. And it's available for you right on YouTube at Life by the Bow. Clay joins us for a good conversation about all kinds of things, about how he got started, what he's doing now, what his production looks like, going to the Bahamas, fishing regulations, on and on. We had a great conversation. I look forward to having Clay back already, and we're just getting started. Here's Clay Cowart from Life by the Bow.
I'm Clay Cowart, and you guys are listening to the Tom Rowland Podcast. She's an absolute rock star. You know, she's letting me get all of my sleep, taking care of the baby. So she's kind of taking a little bit of a step back, but no complaints, getting plenty of it. So I'm rocking and rolling the same as ever. How are your daughters?
That's awesome.
You have
I got
daughters?
two boys and a girl. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, my oldest son is now he's like 26. Then I've got a 24. And then my daughter's 20. So both the boys are all over the place. They're doing all kinds of stuff.
They have interest in fishing?
Yeah. Fishing. One of the boys works with me, and he's doing some selling and stuff, and then my other son, he works for this company called Moondance. They do these trips all over the world. They take like pretty much high school kids all over the world, and he's in France, Italy, and Switzerland right now. Wow. And doing this tour of Mont Blanc, and he just finished one trip and he's doing the second trip. This is his third year leading that kind of thing. Last year he was in Alaska. So they're very outdoor oriented, but you know, different ways and different things. It's quite an adventure when you watch the kids grow up. It's wild, yeah. Man. And I mean, I can just literally, like what you're saying is like you're having trouble, you know, they're sleeping things and you're working so hard and you're trying to get some sleep and you're just tired. That totally seems like yesterday to me with the kids. Mm-hmm. And then you blink your eyes, man, and I'm telling you, you blink your eyes and your kids are like getting married, and mm-hmm. we have one married. It's crazy though. That's man. Awesome, though. It's crazy. Congrats. Yeah. No, I mean, it's the greatest thing you have in your whole life, and it's cool to see you going through it too. Like, mm-hmm. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thing because, like, I'm the type of person where just I love working. Like, I love staying busy. But it's like recently I want to pull back from that a little bit just because, like you're saying, time does go by so fast. Yeah. Feels like yesterday the baby was born. She's 3 months old today. So
3 months. What's her name?
Her name's Keely.
Keely. Is that a family name?
No, it's not. Actually, it's kind of funny. We did a shoot with Sea-Doo a couple years ago, and one of the marketing girls' names was Keely, and we were trying to think of a name that kind of went with Cowart, but I mean, like Kelly, you know, all the other names were taken, and we remembered Keely, and we were like, man, that sounds really cool and it's different, so we kind of gravitated towards that immediately.
I like it. That's great.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to have you on here because I've been watching your stuff. It's really fantastic, man. I mean, even just this morning, I watched the one where you took the bay boat to the Bahamas. Really good, man. Yeah, really good.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about all that stuff in the podcast.
Well, I think we're started, man. I've never done it quite like this, but we just kind of rolled into it, and the conversation's good. I think we get started. Yeah, man. I really like what you're doing. You got some really good content. You got some really good shows. That one of taking the bay boat to the Bahamas, I thought that was really well done. And really good. You go over there a lot, right?
Yeah, try to go over there as much as I possibly can. And a lot of that is just because the internet loves the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, I figured that out very early on. And, like, that's where I find most of my excitement when we shoot our content. Just because, you know, I'm sure as you guys know, fishing in the Keys is always exciting, right? But me having access to it in my backyard, it kind of seems a little more redundant.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, every single trip over to the Bahamas holds something new every single time. There's always a surprise, something ultimately always goes wrong. And, there's also a tremendous amount of pressure to deliver when you're over there as well, because it costs a lot of money to
Right.
go over to the Bahamas. But it's basically like a big risk, but there's always like a big reward associated with it because, there's just not as much fishing pressure over there. So I find fishing to be easier, and just coupling that with the beauty and just the water that the Bahamas holds. It's truly, a fisherman's and videographer's paradise, to combine those two together to just really create something unique and something really beautiful. And that's like what I truly enjoy more so than anything. Like, I love the videography just as much as I love the fishing.
Yeah.
So
how did you get into shooting video?
So I've been doing it basically all my life. There's kind of like this ongoing joke amongst my family, or I guess, if you were to watch some of like the old family tapes, you'd see my mom just screaming at me as a little kid because I would just sit there and I would just roll tape, back before everything was digital. And she used to get so frustrated, and I've just always had a love for just like filming things and putting things together. And I actually got into editing, believe it or not, when I was probably about like 10 years old.
Really?
On like Windows Movie Maker. Yeah, so like I've always kind of just had a natural knack for videography and editing, and then did it all throughout high school. Filmed like me and my friends going fishing and going out on the boat. I even filmed some football games like at the end of my JV season, with varsity. And then finally, when it was time to go to college, just really wasn't interested in anything. And then my parents told me, they're like, you've always been really good at film and videography. Just go to school for that. And I was just like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And then just the only thing I could find interest in. So I just went for it and did my freshman year at Alabama, transferred to the University of Miami. Yeah, and then once I transferred to UM, it was just like going to the Keys, fishing, being out on the boat during the weekends, and then just going to school throughout the week. And throughout school, just started a media company, did different video jobs here and there. I filmed weddings, and then basically here I am now, just doing it full-fledged as a career on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's so cool. I went to Alabama too. And
Did you?
Yeah, and it's easy to like. You just went 1 year and then moved right back to Miami. Like, what was going on there? It's pretty easy to get lost at Alabama, or the tide. No pun intended, but the tide can pull you under there very easily. Very easily. But what was the thought process of kind of first going there? Were you a football fan, or like what was the draw to Alabama?
No, it's kind of funny. Like my family is huge into sports, but my dad's always been into boating. So the initial draw going to Alabama was to follow my brother because my brother went to Alabama. I applied to UF and didn't get into there. Got into Alabama, so I was like, you know what? It's a 4-year school. Let me just go there rather than going to a community college, because all my friends went to Santa Fe. They didn't get into UF either. So I was like, I'm not going to follow my friends. I'm just going to try to better myself. Went to school at Alabama and did not like it. I'm not a partier. I'm not a drinker, so I didn't really fit in too well there. Plus, like, I missed home so much just being around the water. So I just worked my butt off and got straight A's, eventually applied to UM, got in there. And I remember when I got into UM, it was just like, it's like I was just like released out of jail, because I was just so happy to be coming home and just doing exactly what I told you. Just, going to school throughout the week and just getting out on the boat and just going fishing on the weekends.
There's a lot of, kids, South Florida kids, Keys kids that there's several fishing guides that and I know that went to school, graduated from school, but all the while they could have just started guiding immediately. I mean, Paul Ross, Richard Black, two of the very best down there. Both, I have a tremendous amount of respect for them because both of them just said, the guiding it'll wait. Both of those guys could have filled their schedule, but they found it very important to go to college for whatever their reasons were. What was your reason for that? Because it sounds like you could have easily just, had plenty of work. I don't know. Could you have, or was that like a driving force to? I just think it's kind of interesting in these days because a lot of people feel like you don't need college right now, and other people think that it's super important, and everybody has their reasons. I just wonder, like, what were yours?
Well, I mean, I would say going to college is definitely something that my parents pushed me to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm very grateful that I went, even though that I didn't think it, I don't think it's necessary to do what I'm doing now. But one thing I can say is it taught me responsibility. It taught me work ethic. Going away to school, at that matter, just taught me so much in the sense that, once you're out of the house, a lot changes, and I think that that's something that everybody ultimately needs. But, going back to those guys that you were talking about, I think that going to college definitely has a lot to do with their success potentially as fishermen as well, because you and I both know, like, it's not easy out there some days, and you got to be fully committed and you got to be good at what you do in order to be successful as a fisherman. And I think that, if you're not committed to something and, you don't have the right mindset and work ethic when you're out there on the water, it's very easy to become unsuccessful when it comes to fishing. So, I think that college definitely is helpful and it's useful in all avenues of life, because at the end of the day, being educated is just going to help you. It's not going to hurt you in any way.
Yeah. I talk to my kids about it, a lot. Both my boys graduated from Montana State and my daughter's at Auburn. And each of them, well, my daughter has had a different experience. She loves college. She loves it. But both my boys kind of had this period where it's kind of like, I don't know if I need this. Like, I'm like my oldest son, he was doing this internship at the startup out there, and he was going to real work experience, and he was seeing how real things happen in the real world. And then he was going back to these business classes, and it was all theoretical kind of stuff. And he was just like, that is not the way that it happens. That is not. And he really struggled with it a little bit. And I, talked to him and tried to get him to understand that college was more than what you're learning in the classroom. I think it is,
Yeah, and it definitely is, in my opinion. But, I'm sure you know a lot of successful people, and I know a lot of successful people that never went to college.
For sure.
Yeah, so I guess it all depends, like, on how it meshes with your personality. On the flip side, I started a fishing brand. And everything that I learned based on how to start that brand, how to source the products from China, how to start designing the products, things of that nature, I completely taught myself.
Yeah.
There was actually some fundamentals that I took from college, like graphic design, things like that. But as far as like figuring out how that entire process worked, sourcing products, designing them, producing them, how to hire people to actually design certain things for you as well, I learned that strictly all off of the internet. And that's what's kind of interesting in 2024. You're seeing a lot of people just educating themselves, self-educating themselves, strictly just through the internet. And it's very interesting just seeing how the internet is just changing the world.
Yeah.
And society is just changing as well because of the internet. It's an interesting future that we're going to have.
Well, I think so. One of the questions that sometimes we do this hot seat thing, and I've got it ready for you down the line here. But one of the questions that I often ask is, in what way do you think AI is going to change your particular job or your life? And it's kind of interesting to think about that in this context of like what you're talking about. Is like people are educating themselves on the internet and building very, very successful businesses. No college, just like you can just get an incredible education for exactly what you're looking for right on the internet. How do you think AI, or have you even seen, like there's AI editors, there's AI, all kinds of things that we use in our business of making content already. What do you see? Where do you see that going?
Well, it's a good question, and I want to start just with a statement. I already use AI in my workflow. Like, for example, like all of my thumbnails, when we post our YouTube content, we use AI basically to generate some of the elements in our thumbnails. We also use AI sometimes to help write voiceovers. So like those are some ways that I'm already using AI in our content. One thing I have found though, AI is really bad at replicating fish. So it definitely has a very long way to go, I feel like, on our end. But in other, I guess you could say in other niches, I think like it's going to get to a point where content can strictly just be produced by AI. I don't think it'll ever be on the level where it feels like real. Like, for example, shooting a movie. Like, I don't think it could ever replicate Adam Sandler and basically produce an entire Adam Sandler movie. Maybe it can one day.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, have you seen that Outer Range lately? Do you know what that show
I
is?
haven't.
So it's a show on,
No.
I think it's on Amazon Prime, maybe Hulu. I don't know, one of those. And it's got Josh Brolin in it. And what caught my eye is, I started my career in Jackson, Wyoming, and the Tetons are right there. And the Tetons are like this iconic mountain range that I could spot anywhere. If it was on a T-shirt or anything, the Tetons, you just can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this show, you got the Tetons right there. But a lot of where they were filming, I'm like, there's no way that they're filming with that. Like, I know it well enough that I'm like, no, they would have to be over here. They couldn't get that from anywhere that I know. Like, where would they be filming this? And so that's what got me started watching this show. It turns out it's a pretty good show. But I was really interested in that. And then I started looking it up. I'm like, I don't think they filmed it there. It turns out they filmed it in New Mexico. And then they just put the Tetons in there with CGI and AI and whatever else. But I mean, it was so good. Like, they would be like rack focus, in and out of focus, and it wasn't just like that they were just back there. It looked like you were really there shooting with a real camera. Like, then they would go tight to somebody's face, and then the Tetons would be like blurry in the background. But it looked so real. It looks so real.
That's so funny that you notice that because you have the actual experience there. But I mean, I guess a perfect example is Avatar.
Yeah.
Like, look at the movie Avatar. Like, that is just unbelievable. What they've done. And I just think that, like you're saying, I mean, I think there definitely is a day and age where AI is going to completely take over. And, it's something that I worry about, actually, now that I have a daughter and I think about the future. I always want her to know what reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's kind of funny because I don't know if you noticed it too. Instagram actually has a little thing beside certain photos that are generated with AI.
Huh, I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, so like it's happened on some of my photos actually. I'll wrap myself out. But basically a little thing will pop up right there on the side of the Instagram photo saying that it was made with AI. So like, I think that it's getting to a point where we have to start regulating some of this stuff because it's just becoming way too believable.
Well,
and like,
I mean, yeah, like what we're talking about is this fish was 40% smaller than this guy's making it look like, right? Like, this fish was not this big. But that's like small potatoes compared to Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump or Joe Biden or any world leader saying something that they didn't say. Like, that's where it gets like spooky and scary.
Yeah.
That you could create a whole war or a whole situation some kid on their computer on their breakfast table could do that and put it on the internet, and people don't know that it's not real. Like that. That's pretty scary, and it's happening.
No, it is. Yeah, and like I question everything that's on the internet and that's on social media now. Some people don't, and like you're saying, that is when it's kind of scary. But unfortunately, the way that I see it too is like, how like something really cool comes out. I guess like a good example is like drones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when drones first came out, they were so cool, and you could do just about anything and everything that you wanted with them. But then, of course, people use them the wrong ways, and then basically, can't fly them in Everglades National Park anymore. You can't fly them in national parks anymore. And I think that that's eventually what's going to happen with the internet. Like, we need some type of regulation in order to regulate what's happening on there right now. In order to prevent potential disasters, because people get worked up and people are just way more disconnected from reality now, more so than ever. And I think it's definitely something that we need to start paying attention to a little more.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but it does seem like people on social media get in this echo chamber where you're delivered, the same story with a different context. And it used to be that you would turn on, CNN, and then you flip it over to Fox, and they're telling you the same story, and it's two completely different stories. It's the same event, two completely different stories, right? And you're like, I wonder what happened. Somewhere it's in the middle, right? Like there's probably I don't know, like there's probably some truth on both sides, and the real story's kind of in the middle maybe. But now on social, people get on there and they're just getting like this echo chamber because they get served up the same kind of stuff every single day, and then it leads them to believe that everybody believes this, like whatever it is. And I think, I don't know, it's bizarre. But anyway, I don't know. I want to talk about fishing more than that. So, let's do this hot seat while we got a chance. It'll change the subject, and it'll give us a couple things to talk about. All right, so this is just quick questions. You just roll through them as quick as you can. All right, text or call?
Call.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Inshore or offshore?
Offshore.
Fly or drive?
Fly, I guess.
Okay. Favorite athlete of all time?
I would say Sean Taylor.
Okay. Destination you'd like to visit for fishing?
I guess Louisiana.
Good choice. 3 baby names that you considered but decided against?
Man, I don't even think we got there.
Just one.
We just kind of picked it and went with it.
Okay, that's good. A movie that makes you laugh?
Man, Talladega Nights is always a go-to.
What's your most productive time of the day?
Morning.
One thing that you've changed your mind on in the last few years?
I guess I would say business.
Okay. Best piece of advice you remember being given?
Trust your gut.
What's your standard order at a coffee shop?
Just black coffee.
Black coffee. Favorite cheat meal?
Definitely like a good hamburger and some Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen, huh? What's your catch of a lifetime?
Catch of a lifetime? I would say probably the most memorable catch was a swordfish my wife and I caught together.
Nice. Was that on the show?
Yeah, it was.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was.
When was it?
I want to say it was probably about 2.5 years ago. As you know, like the swordfish down here in the Keys is kind of like the holy grail. So like that was like one of our biggest challenges. Like, let's go out there and catch it all by ourselves. And it was just such a cool feeling when we did it.
Yeah.
And then of course, swordfish tastes amazing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of our favorite fish to go out and catch. Like if we just have the weather and we have the time and we have the perfect alignment to go out and do it.
You ever tried it at night?
No, I never have. I'm not a really big fan of boats at night.
Yeah, no, me
I like
either.
my sleep.
Yeah, me too. But when like a long time ago, that was how everybody did it, and it was like this big discovery. And they would have to. It was a big operation, man. You had this huge light that you would put in the water. I mean, it was like a 7 or 8 foot light. They'd put it down in the water, and they had these batteries that went on there, and you had to go out at night. And I went with my friend Kenny Harris, and it was during tarpon season. He's like, "You got to come with me. You got to check this out. It's amazing." The thing that is amazing about it is the star show out there is unbelievable. Like, that is worth the price of admission. But when you're fishing hard every single day, and you're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going tarpon fishing, and then your buddy asks you to go, and I went, and it took me a full 2 weeks to recover from that trip. I mean, just you're out there, I'm sound asleep. We don't catch any fish, but the stars were worth it. But it was quite the operation. I mean, I think that's when sword fishing became more and more popular, is when people started doing it in the daytime, realizing that you didn't have to go out there in the middle of the night to catch them, and you were catching them just fine in the daytime. That was a lot better for me. That made me want to sword fish a lot more, because after I came back from that first trip, I was like, dude, I don't care how big they are or how good they are to taste. I don't want to do that again. That was miserable.
I could imagine. When did daytime sword fishing really start getting popular, though?
Well, I remember that Scott Walker was doing a lot of the pioneering on that in the Keys, and he was really working on the rig, and he was doing things down there and catching them, started to catch them, and there weren't that many that had been caught, and he was really into it. He was really catching them, and he was trying to figure out the rig, because if the rig tangled on the way down, it was over. And we did a show with him real early, and caught one. Went out there. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. He goes out there, we make one drop, catch a swordfish, and that's it. And I was like, holy cow, who is this guy? He's like a magician. Like, unbelievable. Yeah. But, I would think, I don't know. I mean, people, there were probably tons of people doing it that just kept it quiet and didn't say much about it. And I don't know. In the 2008, maybe 2000. I don't know. I'd have to look back at what that show was, when that show was, but it was one of the first few seasons of Saltwater Experience, and we've been on the air for 20 years now, so it was a while ago.
Yeah.
But very cool when it happened.
I just find it so interesting, some of these techniques of fishing. Like, we're all so spoiled nowadays. Like, you can just go onto YouTube and you can search up any different type of fishing, and you can figure out how to do it almost immediately. Whereas, like, back then, like, I can't even imagine the amount of time and the amount of money that actually went into just figuring out how that entire process works.
Yeah.
How to catch that fish in 1,500 feet of water. So it's like, I have a lot of respect for these guys that put in that amount of time to just figure something out like that.
Yeah.
Because it's mind-blowing, honestly.
I mean, what's mind-blowing, I mean, I have tremendous amount of respect for all the people that came before us, because some things have gotten so much easier. But like with Scott there, I remember him telling us that day. I'll never forget that day. It was the first day that I'd ever fished with Scott Walker. And, he's like, I got the rig. I finally got the rig. And he was so proud that he had this rig that wouldn't tangle or hadn't tangled on the way down. And I'm like, how many of these did you have to go through before you found just the right one? He's like, I got 55-gallon drums full of rigs that I've just thrown away. And that's what it was all about, I mean, he was using like a curtain, he was getting the lead weights from a curtain sash, and I don't know. It was pretty early. Which hook is the best? How do you drop this down without tangling? That was the biggest one, because if it got down there and tangled, you weren't getting a bite, and you pull it up and you're thinking, well, maybe I wasn't in the right place, and then you realize it was all tangled, and so maybe you were in the right place, and then you have to go try that spot again, and it just took a lot of time for him, for everybody that was doing it. But there were a lot of people that were pioneering it at the same time, and all of them had good reason, because it was pretty miserable to go out there at night with those big lights, and the lights would break, and the whole thing was just like this big giant production. That was unnecessary, it turned out. Kind of funny.
Yeah. Anything at night is obviously always more difficult, but it's kind of funny mentioning that. I want to say, like, some of the videos that you guys did actually taught me how to sword fish. I consumed everything that I possibly could. And I want to say that I came across a video one time where Scott Walker, I think, was explaining, maybe, I don't know which one it was, but I think they were explaining a swordfish rig on a Beastmaster. Mm-hmm. And I had a Beastmaster at the time, and I was like, oh man, I could do this. And then I remember just after that, like, you know, the drag was so loose, like the motor had just like basically destroyed itself because like we were just trying to crank on it with all we had. And it's funny, we went out another time and we caught a thresher shark on the Beastmaster.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a fish I've never caught, man. That is a badass
so cool.
fish.
And what's even crazier is we caught it on our 23 Pathfinder at the time.
Wow.
So
did that tail, when you land one of those things, is that tail going crazy like it does when it's hunting?
No, because it was so tired. And I remember we had just hired this new videographer. And man, we had no idea what a thresher shark really even was. Like, the only reason why I knew what a thresher shark was is because, like, I think I watched like one of Nick Stanczyk's videos one day. So this videographer, he was from Colorado, very talented, but you know, he'd never really been around the ocean. So he's like, I want to get in the water with it. So we cut the line and it's swimming back down to the bottom, and he's in the water with this thresher shark filming him. Little did we know like how powerful that fish really is with its tail. So just one of those crazy things, just being young, dumb, and
I'll tell you, the one you don't want to swim with is the swordfish. No more of that for us. I mean, our diver got attacked.
I've seen what you guys have posted.
Dude, there was no question about it. You see the fish is going like this, and you see its eye go like to the diver and then straight at him. And if he had not had, like, he had this thing in front of him, it was like we sometimes use like a little, one of those scooter things that, and we have cameras mounted on top of it. So if you can't catch up to the fish, you can use this and help it. And then you can kind of use it as a guard against swordfish attacks, apparently is what it was for. But he was just holding that thing. And if he hadn't had that, it would have skewered him, man. It would have gone straight through him, no question. Cause it was that hard plastic, and the bill went in 6 inches and broke off. And I mean, it went inside of that thing 6 inches, and the power to do that. I don't think you could hammer that thing in there with a sledgehammer. I don't, like you and I don't think we could hammer it in there with a sledgehammer. Yet that fish, 3 swipes of his tail and it goes in there. They're so incredibly powerful. But the swordfish has proven, in my experience, that is like the most aggressive fish. Pretty much swim with any of the other ones. I don't know much about marlin. Like, I think they could be very dangerous to swim with too. Like, that's a big angry fish, right?
Another thing is swordfish. They'll destroy the boat too.
Yes.
You know, like, if that fish isn't dead when you bring it inside the boat, I mean, it would just destroy every cushion. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if it would chip up some gel coat. But I remember the first one that we caught, like, it was basically dead. And then my wife, she drops the bill on the side of the cushion, and it just slashes through the entire cushion without like any pressure, no force whatsoever. So I mean, it really is unbelievable. I mean, it's such a cool fish. It does worry me a little bit though, because it has gotten so popular down here in the Keys, and I guess that's all fishing at that matter. You know, I do worry about all fisheries because fishing is more popular than it's ever been, and you know, I'm just
Well,
I don't know.
Well, when we were first getting started to try to plan this thing out, one of the things that we thought maybe we would talk about was fishing regulations, and you said you had some thoughts on that. Like, when it's timely in this conversation. Like, what obviously everybody has considerations on how many people are fishing. Like, the older people will say, it's not as good as it used to be. Of course, that's what they were saying. A long time ago. It seemed pretty good to me when I was just first starting out, but I do see that there has been some changes. But in some cases, the fishing is better than it's ever been. Like, the snook fishing right now is unbelievable, and so I do believe that there's ebbs and flows. But what are your thoughts on the fishing regulations, and maybe especially as it pertains to the Bahamas?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think that I'm not going to say that we need stricter regulations, but I do think that some people need to be a little more conscious. I'm definitely spoiled. I can go out there whenever I want to go and catch a fish. Whereas, like, I understand at the same time, like, it's different for some people. Like, some people only get to go out there once every 6 months. So, like, when they do go, they are trying to catch as many fish as possible, and they want to put it in their freezer, and they want to eat it later on. And, like, that to me is fine. But I see a lot of guys that have a lot of experience, and they're running these big center consoles. You know, speaking of the Bahamas, they're going over to the Bahamas, and man, they're catching everything and more than they need. And they go often. You know, it's just like it's like once every couple weeks. You know, especially when the yellowfin tunas start to run, the wahoos start to run, all these fish start to run, and I just think to myself, like, rather than going after one species and one species only, like, try to disperse it a little bit. Like, if fish is your main mission, you know, go catch a couple yellow eyes, go catch a couple wahoo, you know, maybe go try to catch, you know, I don't know, a couple lobster. And, like, that's actually, it's funny, going back to my video that I just did in our Pathfinder over in the Bahamas, like, that's what I try to do in every single Bahamas trip that I do, in every single fishing trip if I can. Like, I try to just disperse my catch amongst different species, just because, like, I know that at the end of the day, if I want to bring a lot of fish home, it's better to just take a little bit from here, take a little bit from there, rather than just taking as a whole. And, you know, I know for a fact a lot of these fish that these people are catching, they're not eating all of it. You know, it's going in freezers, and I see sometimes the way that people fillet fish, and they leave meat on the carcass because there's just so much of it. And it turns into careless filleting at the same exact time. And, you know, I hope that I'm wrong. Like, I hope that, you know, these fisheries are just as strong as they ever have been before, but maybe it's just like my own bias. I don't really like filleting a lot of fish for multiple reasons. But, you know, I think that you would probably be a better person to ask rather than myself. I mean, how have you seen it change? Have you seen?
Well, there's definitely been changes. The major changes that I've seen are more ebbs and flows. Like, for instance, the one that was the most obvious is that when I first started coming to the Keys, the bone fishing in Islamorada was unbelievable. I mean, there were world records coming from there. You could just, all you had to do was get to Shell Key, and there you could see an 18-pound bonefish. You might not be able to catch one, but you could see one. You didn't even have to know what you were doing, and you could see these massive, massive fish up there, and they were all over the downtown area. And then we had a natural occurrence of a cold front that, you know, in my opinion, it really zapped those fish. Other people may think other things happen. I don't know, but for a long time they were there, and then they weren't. And now it's coming back, and it's really good. But at the same time, when I first started in Key West, there were very few bonefish down there. You could catch fish in Big Pine and the Contents and Sugarloaf in that area, but west of Key West and around Key West, there were not that many bonefish. And if you did find them, they were small. And now that fishing is unbelievable, lights out, the incredible fishing, and they're getting bigger. And so and then early, it was rare to catch permit around Islamorada. Like, I wouldn't say rare, but people were there were a couple things that were going on. There was so much bonefish happening that most people were pushing right up to where the bonefish were, and maybe there were permit back behind them. I don't know. But when I first started fishing with Rich, he didn't have a lot of experience with permit, and I was super confident with permit because that's what I did all the time. The permit fishing in Key West area was fantastic. That's where I spent most of my time. We didn't have as many bonefish, or maybe they were there, but I was just, you know, I would go to where the permit depth was and stay there. Maybe the bonefish were up there higher, but why would I go any further? There's plenty of permit right here. And so, I don't know. I don't really think that there were that many bonefish there. but there certainly were a lot of permit. So I was super confident on the permit. He was super confident on the bonefish. That was a place where we could share information, and that's how we kind of started fishing together. And it was kind of fun to go up there and learn about the bonefish, and he could come down and learn about the permit fishing. Well, that has changed a lot over the years. I don't know that it's necessarily because of fishing pressure or because of netting or anything that's going on. I think that it's a natural occurrence in those particular situations of, there was a cold front that really, really hit the fish in Islamorada hard. For whatever reason, there's a surge of bonefish in Key West. Now, honestly, I don't see as many permit as I used to. So, more bonefish. Are they super competitive and a little more aggressive than the permit? Possibly. Could that have been what was going on in Islamorada when those big bonefish were really prolific up there and there weren't as many permit? I don't know. But there's more permit up there now, and there's more bonefish in Key West. So you'll see big changes like that where in the course of my career, I've seen big changes where you'll have like areas that used to be so good and you just hardly even fish that particular species in that area anymore. Happened with the redfish all up and down through the lower Keys. We've had years where it's really, 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 really good, and then a few years later, it's really hard to find them. And I don't know. Do they move? Do they die? I don't know. I think they just move. But then, the tarpon fishing has definitely changed. Anyone would be crazy to try to make an argument that the tarpon fishing is as good now as it was, 20 years ago. I don't know if it's but you'll see people that'll have huge days, and they're catching fish that, I don't know. The anglers are getting better, the flies are getting better, the techniques are getting better, everything's getting better, and you can have some people that are really catching a lot of fish. But I don't know. I mean, back when I first got started, like, everybody was hooking fish. You didn't have to be an expert caster. Like, people were hooking fish. And I don't know. I think that's changed. And I do think that the tarpon fishing is pressure. That there's a lot of pressure on the fish these days. And I don't know. There's just so many reasons why. I mean, like, boats are more available. I mean, like, I don't know. There were very few skiffs, like true poling skiffs. When I first started guiding, there would be like some real avid kind of client kind of people that had their own skiff too, and they would go out occasionally. But pretty much if you saw a skiff, it was a guide. That's it. Mm-hmm. These days, lots of skiffs, man. Lots of skiffs. Yeah. And you could have a skiff and not be a guide. Like, lots of people have them.
Yeah, I feel like boats in general. I mean, I feel like more people have boats today than ever. I mean, boating and fishing has just grown tremendously in popularity. And I feel like, a lot of that just has to do with just people just being so sick of just the city, being on land, not dealing with traffic. Yeah. I think that ultimately we all kind of get on the water for the same reasons. It's just because we love being out there. We love the serenity that's associated with all of that. But going back to what you're talking about, I mean, I think it's definitely probably all of the above. Like you're saying, the fish move, ebbs and flows, the same exact time. Who knows? Maybe there's more boat traffic in an area like Islamorada versus the Southern Keys, where places like you're talking about, the Content Keys, Key West. I mean, that's all water that's extremely hard to navigate. Mm-hmm. So maybe like all those little flats and all those little bays up inside of there, areas where those fish feel safe, versus a place like Islamorada where you have quad 500 Mercuries going over the top of your head, on the way to the sandbar.
Yeah, so. But there's a lot of people that have found their way around, for sure. Mm-hmm. More than, I don't know. There's a lot. I don't know that it's boat traffic though. I mean, that's what you kind of have seen. I'm sure you've seen this trying to film your show, but I mean, there's been some times where, we'll get to a great fishing situation, and if it was a tournament or if it was a guided fishing day, you just go right in there and catch these fish. But when you got these guys and the camera guys, they're like, hold on, we're filming right into the sun. We're going to get nothing. right? You're going to catch these fish, but you're going to get nothing. It's like, oh no, this is perfect. This is the most incredible situation ever. They're like, no, you got to go from the other side, man. The other side. Like, you want me to pole all the way around this school of fish that typically you have like 2 seconds to make a cast to, and you're thinking we can go all the way around? Like, it's impossible. Well, I'm just telling you this, man. If we shoot this way, you're not getting anything. Okay. So we try, and like, okay, I guess, chances are we're not going to catch anything. So we're going to start poling around this school of fish. And if you, what I found is that if you spend enough time doing it, you're careful, you're slow enough, and you're patient enough, you can actually make that happen. I didn't realize that could be done, right? Like, usually it's like, there's a bonefish, you got to cast right now, right? But if you back off and give them some space, a lot of times they're just milling around in there, and you can learn so much about their activity. And we've had to forcibly learn about their behavior like that, because we couldn't fish in the way that we wanted to fish, the most productive way of going in there and catching them like we normally would. We have to go all the way around and do all these different things. And I'm sure you've seen that too. And you can do, like, I don't know, or a boat will run right through, and it's like, okay, are we going to pull up this whole operation and try to find some more fish, or should we just sit right here? And a boat runs right over the top of what you're fishing for. And then, 25 minutes later, they're good. They can be caught. But
kind of a funny story. I remember actually a year ago, my wife and I, we were in Chub Key, a different trip where we brought our Pathfinder over to the Bahamas, and we went bone fishing. And man, we've been looking around all day just trying to find bonefish. And like, I'm probably like 5% inshore and like 95% offshore. But I always love challenging myself to do something different. I grew up actually inshore fishing. I used to have like a little 15-foot skiff called an ugly boat. It was a lot like a canoe. Yeah, so like that was like my first ability to be let off, like, the umbilical cord, so to speak, to go out and fish on my own. My dad had a 30-foot Scarab, but it was like older, so like he never trusted that boat going offshore, but like he just let me take it around the Keys, and something would always be wrong with it. So like I never took it out because I didn't want to deal with it, so I just stuck to my little 15-foot skiff. But anyway, what I was getting to in that story, we're fishing and we're looking around for these bonefish all day, and finally we found like a school of like 100 bonefish tailing. And her and I are so pumped up. And then there's this Bahamian guy, and he's running in his boat like very, very close to the direction of the bonefish. But he wasn't going to run him over, but he was close. So like I was just trying to like wave him out of the way and just say, hey, go a different way. There's a school of bonefish right here. And as soon as he sees me like going like this, like waving away, he thought I was asking for help. Yes. So he turns directly towards us, and he runs over the entire school of bonefish. And at that point, like, I'm sure you know that feeling. Oh, yeah. Like, I could have just lost it. But at the same time, I'm being considerate because the guy was coming over to help us. But I told him, I was like, no, man, we don't need help. I was waving you away because there's a school of bonefish. And then he says it in his Bahamian accent. He's like, oh, don't worry, man. Like, they'll come right back up. And I'm like, yeah, right, man. Like, you just ran over the entire school of bonefish, kicking up seagrass in his prop, tearing up the flat, everything. So eventually he pulls away. Like, probably 5 minutes later, we just stayed in the spot power pole. Yes. And then all the bonefish just rise right back up. I throw a shrimp in. I hook one. My wife throws a shrimp in, she hooks one. So it's just like you're saying, sometimes maybe boat traffic isn't necessarily the issue.
Yeah.
Those fish just maybe get accustomed to it.
I mean, sometimes, like but I have had the exact same thing happen to where you're waving somebody off or you're doing something and they think you need help. And it's like, dude, just don't, no hand motions. Like, just let them go. Let them run right over the top of your fish and let them keep going. Like, don't tell them to slow down. Like, if somebody's going to run you over in it, like if you're fishing in a channel, I'd rather them just blow on through, right? Like, please don't slow down and idle, right? Like, that's the worst. Now it's going to be 15 minutes, right? Like, it was going to be 10 seconds and they were going to be gone. But
well, another thing too, I've kind of found in certain situations, even like tarpon fishing with a trolling motor, I feel like when that sound is consistent, not to say that it doesn't spook the fish, but I think the change in tone sometimes spooks them. So what you're talking about, like, as long as that boat engine is at that same constant tone and it kind of fades in and fades out, I don't see it as much of a problem versus it being that tone and then changing that tone, because I think that that's what fish don't like.
Yeah.
They don't like change. They like consistency. So, like, you know, I even have like a creek, which I'm very sure that you know of, and I'm not going to say it here on the podcast, but boats blow in and out of there. And I remember one afternoon I was like live chumming with pilchards in this channel, and there's boats running full speed by me, and I caught probably 8 tarpon within like an hour in that channel as there's boats blowing by. So, like, you know, there's situations like that too that are just very interesting to me, where those fish are just used to that. You know, maybe the boat wakes are pushing bait up into the mangroves. I don't know.
But if you get in a way deep backcountry channel where nobody ever runs through there and somebody runs through there, it does not have the same effect. Like, they're not used to it, and it's like it seems to be over. But I don't know. I mean, one of the things that you know, I was saying about that story I told about having to pole around the fish is, like, sometimes if you just give it some time, a lot longer, you know, it's real easy to get mad and just leave. But sometimes if you just sit down and eat a sandwich and wait, like, all of a sudden it starts happening again. I don't know. I don't know what the right thing is. Like, that's the thing about fishing, right? Like, you just never know. Like, what, I don't know. On the day, like, if it's a tournament, I can tell you what's going to happen. If you need one fish to win the tournament and somebody runs through there, they're not coming back up. It's over. That's it. It's over. But on a day where you don't really care and you've already caught a couple and you're almost about to go in anyway and somebody runs through there, they're biting like crazy right after that. Like, I don't know. But when you need it, or you need one fish to make the show or something like that, it's over if something like that happens.
So that raises like a great question that I have for you. How much do you think attitude has to do with success in fishing?
I think attitude has, I think that my favorite T-shirt is "Mindset is everything." I have a couple of shirts that say that. I think attitude is 90% of success in anything. But I think that, you know, I've thought about this a lot with, you know, like what fly you're using, or like what lure you're using, what bait you're using, what you're doing. Like, if you don't have confidence in it, a lot of times you're very quick to say, I got to change this fly, or I got to, like, this isn't working. They're no grouper here. Let's move on. Like, but if you're 100% confident in what you're doing, I don't know if it's just the confidence in doing, you know, if that's what's catching the fish, or if it's the confidence that, hey, they're not biting right now, but we're just getting started. Like, we need to build this thing up a little bit. And, like, you give it a lot more time than you would have normally. Maybe that's what it is. But there's no doubt about it that attitude and mindset has a lot to do with my fishing. Might not be everybody's fishing, but it sure is a lot more fun for me to be out there with an optimistic attitude, thinking on the next cast I'm getting bit. You know, that sure is a lot more fun for me than, boy, I don't think it's going to happen here, and being surprised. Usually when I don't think it's going to happen there, it doesn't happen there. And maybe it's because I don't give it enough time, right? Like, I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of different things that could go into it. But when you have confidence, you're casting with confidence. Like, if you're casting to the mangroves and you're just like, this is stupid and there's no fish in here, that's a whole different mindset than skipping it 8 feet under the bushes every single time. And then if you get hung in the bushes one time, you're like, let's get out of here, man. There's nothing here. But if you have 100% confidence that the snook are in there and you're casting under the bushes and you get hung, you're like, nah, we're going to have to go get that. Or, you know, break it off or whatever. But you're going to stick with it. Like, is it sticking with it, or is it the confidence? I don't know. That's the question back to you. Like, do you think it's the confidence that makes a difference, or is it the confidence to stick it out?
I think it's both, you know, like you're saying, you have to have that optimistic attitude about fishing, but at the same exact time, like, you have to stick it out. You know, like, for me, I didn't really start getting serious into fishing until we started Life by the Bow. Like, my dad would take me mahi fishing once every couple of years and go to the store and buy some ballyhoo rigged and put it behind some 50 internationals, and we'd just troll seaweed around more than half the time. But then he would take me up into the mangroves and put out a bag of chum and catch mangrove snappers. Like, he was always more so like a sandbar guy. But like, I've always just really been drawn towards fishing. I really always enjoyed it. Whatever I get into, I take it very, very serious. So like, you know, once I started Life by the Bow, I took it very serious, and I told myself, well, if I want to start a fishing/boating show, I got to learn how to fish. You know, so like, there's a lot of trials and tribulations for me, like trying to figure out how to catch fish. And, you know, one thing that I figured out very early on is it's way harder with a bad attitude. And like, that goes across like all walks of life, right? Like, if you have a bad attitude, like, things are just not going to be easy. But, you know, at the same time, just being logical in your decision making based on, you know, is this a good place to fish? Like, you know, do conditions make sense? Is there current? Like, that's one of the biggest things that I learned when it comes to fishing. Like, current is everything. Like, and there's different types of current. Sometimes too much current is bad. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a little bit of current is good. You know, like, there's just all these different little things that you have to pay attention to. And I just think, like, man, an optimistic attitude and just time on the water is just what's going to make a good fisherman, you know, make a fisherman good, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, I think fishing it's so easy in so many situations to think that, you know, the conditions are against you. You know, there's so many things that can go wrong. It's very easy, if you have a negative attitude, to just not stick it out or just move on or just go home early. Where the best fishermen, I think, are eternally optimistic. They mm-hmm. I mean, their optimism is like Ted Lasso times 100. Like, no, man, it's going to happen. I mean, they could be right around the corner because they've seen it a lot of times, right? Like, well, good. That's a great fishing partner, right? Like, that's somebody that wants to stay out there and wants to see what's around the next corner. But I mean, as far as like guides go, you know, a lot of times the guide is somebody that's really good at what they're doing. They crave learning, right? Like, they crave learning one little thing, because I'm sure that you've experienced this many times, but you can learn this one little thing that opens this entire universe of things to you. Like, if you learn, you know, it's only this far to the Bahamas, and you're like, oh, you could do that in a bay boat. And then you make that crossing, and now because you learned that one little thing about what the right time of the year or whatever to cross on your first time to go over to the Bahamas or whatever. And now you unlock this whole world of the Bahamas, right? It could be, you know, you learn about, you know, mutton snapper fishing, and you finally catch one, and then you're like, oh, there's a whole ledge here that I could now fish. Like, you just open up this entire world of opportunities that just yesterday you didn't even know existed, right? That is the most exciting thing about being a fishing guide or being somebody that's really into fishing, is like those little tiny bits of knowledge that turn into massive opportunities. And so many fishermen are so eternally optimistic because they're hoping that that's what they're going to find. Like, yeah, well, it hadn't been really good, but if we just try a little further, maybe we'll go out a little deeper, or maybe we do this, maybe we'll learn that one little thing that'll open up this new world, right? And in flats fishing, it's really easy to do because it's always just like, oh, it's probably just right around the corner. Like you got to go around this mangrove, and you got to look, and you can't leave until you see what's around the corner, right? In offshore fishing, it's a little different. Like, oh, well, maybe if we just drift this way, and you're just looking at your screen, and you're looking at the bottom, and you're like, oh, that's what we're looking for right there, and maybe you find it, right? Like, I don't know. I think that's the coolest thing about like making your living on the water and just being like really into fishing or being a fishing guide is that learning, and it only has to happen like once before you're just like hooked on it like nothing else. Like, you can't sleep at night. Your brain is like, oh, if it's over there, then could it be over here or anywhere else? Like, that's when it's just super exciting. That's what I like the most.
Yeah. I think as a fisherman, like, you genuinely have to enjoy challenges, because if you don't, you know, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And it's so funny going back to that, like, there's so many places in my backyard that I find every single time I go out, and just I wish that I had. It's so funny talking earlier, like, about time and how fast the time goes by and all this other stuff, and it's like, not saying that I want to be older and retired one day, because I probably won't have the energy that I have now, but like I cherish time, and like I pray for more time, and just I wish I had more time to just be out on the water and go fishing and figure different things out and explore. But I mean, as you know, like, there's just so much other time that just goes into editing and preparation, keeping gear up to par, talking to sponsors. There's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't realize. And it's so funny too, you were going back to talking about trying to catch a fish, but you don't want to shoot it in this particular direction because you don't want to shoot into the sun. And that's the difference between going fishing and shooting a fishing show. Oh, yeah. It was so funny when I just shot that show over in the Bahamas with Justin Lewis in the Bay Boat. Awesome guy, like, had such a blast with him, like, such a good dude. But like, there's certain situations where he's just like 100 miles an hour, like, let's catch this fish, let's do this, let's do that. And I'm like, well, no, like, we have to do this because we have to film it like this certain way. And it's just like, it adds a whole new level to it, when you're trying to, produce content, and be a fisherman at the same exact time.
Yeah, and doing it by yourself, like, for the most part. How many people do you have in your crew when you're filming a show?
It's typically, for the most part, and how we've done it throughout this entire time, is just one videographer.
One videographer.
But yeah, I still stay very, very heavily involved. Like, any chance I can get to fly a drone or pick up a camera and shoot B-roll, I'm doing that. Just because I genuinely enjoy it. I want to get to a point where I can have a crew, and there has been like certain shoots that I've done where I have done a crew and a camera boat and things of that nature, but I found that it really slows us down. Mm-hmm. Having to have that person, follow you around, and then everybody has to be dialed in at the same exact time. I mean, that person driving that camera boat has to know exactly where to be. And it kind of just never seems like that person really never knows where to be. So like, I'm just kind of in this I'm at this point where, I feel like as long as my storytelling and everything is shot professionally, we're putting, like, as long as we're putting together something that I'm happy about, I feel okay. Like, I like keeping the expenses low in that sense, but at the same exact time, like, I would really love to try and find a crew one day with a group of guys that get it and want to shoot the content and can actually handle being on a boat and being in the sun all day long. Like, I know you know how that goes. Like, finding guys,
it's tough to find them sometimes.
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah,
very, very hard.
Now, especially as you go offshore, right? Because there's a lot of people that can do it inshore, but then you can find some guys that are so creative and so great and so easy to be around and, fun. But as soon as you go offshore, they get sick. They get seasick, and so he's not going to work. Like, okay, so next, we have to keep going down the list. But what about, like, we were talking about challenges in fishing and stuff like that. What about the challenges in specifically on the YouTube world that you've either overcome or you see as challenges that you're trying to overcome these days?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is definitely a roller coaster, and it plays with your emotions a lot, because sometimes things are really good and then other times things are just really bad. I think that the biggest challenge with YouTube is just trying to understand exactly what the platform's doing and exactly what your audience wants. I've noticed that there's definitely a trend on YouTube. Like, for example, in the summer months, like, we get the most amount of views. People are out on the boat, they're fishing, they're boating. And then obviously in the fall, there's a huge drop off. And then that's when you start to panic a little bit and you're like, holy crap, like where is all of my viewership going? And then once, winter comes back around, you start getting some snowbirds, watching, and then slowly throughout the spring and then summer peaks. So like that was one of my first challenges that was very difficult to understand why people were watching here and then they're not watching at this certain point of the year. But I think that seasonality all makes sense to the most of us. So that was kind of my first biggest challenge. And then my second biggest challenge is just trying to understand what the audience actually wants to see, because as you know, I mean, it's very different from television. We have to work really, really hard to build the connection with our viewers. And if you don't have that connection, it's hard to get them to watch and stay. And when it's hot as heck out there, man, and you're just having a tough day of fishing and you're trying to put a smile on your face and like act all happy and go lucky when things are tough, people sometimes can see right through it, and they'll comment on the videos like, oh man, like you're so negative, and like your wife's so sweet and this, and it's just like, well man, I don't think you understand the amount of pressure that I'm under sometimes when I'm filming this content. So like that's a challenge too. And I guess I would say the biggest challenge that I find now towards YouTube is trying to sell sponsors on the platform. Like that is I'm not going to say I have everything figured out, but I've figured out enough. And like that is my next endeavor, is just trying to sell the sponsors on YouTube. Because I know how valuable and how lucrative it can be based on building my own brand through the platform. Mm-hmm. And it's simply just because the content never disappears. Like it's always there. Like, for example, I have videos that I produced 3 years ago that'll get 100,000 views in the next 365 days. So like that's kind of just like the next thing, is just trying to get everybody to understand that, hey, like this is a real platform that people are watching, that just isn't a bunch of kids, just sitting on iPads,
Yeah. Well, it's been slow to go that way, honestly, for some of the sponsors, but not all. I mean, you seem to be doing as well as anybody that I see on YouTube as far as sponsorship goes, which is really great.
That.
Yeah, man. I mean,
yeah.
Listen, you're doing a killer job, and your content's great, and I don't know, I think you're doing great.
I appreciate that. I mean, you guys have always been extremely inspiring towards me. It's kind of funny going back to my days at Alabama. I would just get my schoolwork done, and I remember like my dinner time ritual was just always cooking my dinner, sitting there in my dorm room, and just having my laptop in front of me, just watching YouTube, and like Saltwater Experience, Into the Blue. Those were always kind of like my go-tos. And then of course, you had like Addictive Fishing.
Oh yeah.
So like that was just like my piece of home and my motivation to just be home. So like, I'm very appreciative towards all of you guys of what you guys have been doing throughout these years. I study it, I pay attention to it, and I'm very inspired. So, a huge thanks to you guys.
Oh, well,
what you guys do.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. But it wasn't very long ago. I was sitting in the same place, probably in the same place at Alabama, watching Flip Pallet and Bill Dance and Roland Martin and doing the same kind of thing, thinking, man, that is what I want to do right there. What those guys are doing, that's what I want to be doing. And it's hard to imagine that a dream like that can actually come true. And I'm not even sure how it happened, but it did for both of us, and it's really cool. And I think that YouTube, one of the fascinations I have with YouTube, and some of my favorite guests that I've ever had on the podcast are because YouTube is this platform that you can basically be anything you want to be. Like it's an opportunity for someone to do whatever their passion is, whatever someone is interested in. There are other people that are interested in that, and you could have a YouTube channel and you could actually make a living. And it could be something that just a few years ago there would be no possibility that you could make any money doing that particular thing. painting model airplanes. I don't know, anything, the weirdest things. And, for us, it's fishing. And I think that, YouTube is a great platform that allows people to really follow their dreams, right? And most people probably don't make it that far, but at least it's an opportunity. Like, then there's the opportunity, and then after that, it's up to you, right? But there is an audience for pretty much any little niche that you're interested in. You could have a YouTube channel, and you could probably make some money if you put the time and effort and dedication and devotion into it that you've done for your channel.
Yeah, and it's so true. And one of the biggest things that I say about YouTube is, this was a big problem of mine when I first got started. Like, I wasn't happy unless I had 10,000 views. And then if I didn't have 10, then it got to a point where, okay, if I don't get at least 50,000 views, I'm not happy. Now I'm at the point where I'm not happy unless I get 100,000 views. So there's always just that want to just push the bar and try to do more. But, one thing I tell a lot of people that are starting YouTube channels and they ask me for advice is it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 views or 100,000 views. What I've been able to build for myself and my wife and, my future family is just a community. And at the end of the day, it's in the fishing niche. It's down here in the Florida Keys, and it's here in the Bahamas, or it's over in the Bahamas at the same exact time. And my wife is a real estate agent. She sold homes down here in the Florida Keys, and even if you only get 100 views or you get 1,000 views, say for example you make a YouTube channel that's just strictly around real estate. It only takes 1 out of 1,000 to sell a $3 million house or a $5 million house. So it goes back to what you're talking about. It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter what your viewership is. At the end of the day, as long as you're getting some type of traction and you basically use that platform towards your advantage, towards whatever you want to accomplish, there's so many possibilities. And I've even thought about transitioning into boat sales one day, because I love boats, and I could very easily take my community that I built and just say, hey, I'm selling boats now, guys. Let me know if you want a boat. Not saying I'd be the most successful person in the world, but I do have a little bit of confidence that I could sell a boat or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You never really know. And I think that that's what's so cool about the platform is just I don't really see it as a sole source of income. I think that anybody starts a YouTube channel, they should never strictly just rely off of YouTube as income. I think what they should do is they should build revenue streams around the channel that you can always exit from if need be. And that was kind of always my mindset with my brand, building a brand in addition to what I was doing. Not saying that I ever do want to exit, but it's nice to have that fallback plan.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. You never think you want to exit until you do. And then it's the people that have had some sort of I don't know. I never thought plan B was a good idea, because I don't know. When I was guiding, it was just no, this is it. And I got one of the pieces of advice that I got that I remember, one of the best pieces of advice that I remember getting to the question that I asked you was one of my friends, and he still doesn't remember that he told me this, but he did. He said, whatever you're doing, you do it like you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life. That is the only thing that you're going to be doing. And the way that he told me that, and the way that I took it was okay, so maybe I'll guide for another 10 years, maybe I'll guide for another 30 years, maybe I'll guide for another 2 days. But whatever it is, put your 100% soul into that and do it like there is nothing else in the world. And that was probably the best advice that anybody ever gave me. Okay. And so I started doing it like that. And, if you're wavering around and you're kind of well, I might try this for a couple more years, that's not, it's kind of goes back to the mindset conversation. It's if that's the way that you're running your business with kind of that, maybe I'll just try it for a couple more years, versus I'm trying to be the best in the world. or the best that I can be, right? Like not even the best in the world, but I'm trying to be the best. I'm trying to be a little bit better than I was yesterday. Like that's a whole different approach to anything, right? Like not YouTube, not guiding, just anything. If that's the way that you're living your life, that is a whole different approach than kind of let's see what happens.
That is fantastic advice. You know, I think some of the best advice. And, you know, I think that if more people live life and they basically did what they did with that mentality, like it's amazing how much further that can take you. But another thing that I've realized, especially as a young adult, especially living in the Keys, there's not a lot of people that have that mindset to just give everything you got and just pour it into what you're doing, regardless if it's working or not. And there's very little people that can actually, you know, separate their passion versus, you know, sense, if that makes sense. You know, like and I've had to learn that for myself. You know, when we first started, I used to just like dump crazy amounts of money just into producing content, you know, and looking back on it now, it's like before we ever do anything, like I make sure that we have an accommodation sponsor. I always make sure we have a fuel sponsor, you know, so like I make sure that every single time that we do shoot something, all expenses are covered, you know, for that particular shoot, rather than going back into, you know, the savings, you know, essentially.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, and some people I feel like never get past that sometimes, you know, and I think that the fishing industry, not even just the fishing industry, I think every person in media right now, whether it's social media, whatever you want to call it, like there's so much quantity over quality right now. And I think it's just people just want to just like, it goes back to like, okay, you can work, and you can make money working, but you can make a lot more money if you just work smarter. You know what I mean? And I feel like everybody has that mentality, and we're just pumping out as much content as we possibly can. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're just kind of desaturating what you're doing, rather than if you were to just do exactly what you're saying, treat that one thing like your baby, put everything you got into that. And it's just amazing how much further quality will take you versus quantity.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you know.
It's good advice. That'll be the best advice somebody remembers having been given by listening to that.
Hopefully.
Well, listen, man, I've enjoyed this very much. I'd love to have you on again. How do people watch your show? How do they follow you?
Yeah, I mean, very simple. Just go on to YouTube or Google. Just search up Life by the Bow, just like the bow of a boat. And then also on Instagram. Instagram's a little different. Just Cowart_media.
Gotcha.
So.
All right. Well, yeah. Definitely good follows, and definitely a great YouTube channel. So check him out for sure. And Clay, man, I appreciate it. Congratulations on your new family member, and I hope your wife's feeling good, and we see her back on the show soon. You'll have two people returning to the show, I guess. Has your baby been on the show yet?
She has, yeah. She's been on a couple so far. And then Stephanie, she's actually going to return onto the show, this next one that we post here that we just did over there in the Bahamas tournament. Stephanie, she actually won heaviest mahi.
All right.
So it was pretty cool deal for her. She took it home for the boys.
How big was it?
It was 17 pounds.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but it was a yellowfin tuna tournament. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. So was that the first year of that tournament, or?
No, I want to say that they started it in 2020. So they invited us over there to shoot a show around it. But it was a lot of fun. You know, I'm not a tournament fisherman personally. Like, I don't like competing with other people because I would take it too seriously. But you know, I'm so much more open to it now that I did a tournament. And it was just a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. We had a good group of guys and, of course, girl on the boat. So it was fun.
Right on. Sounds awesome. All right. Well, let's do this again for sure. And in the meantime, we'll be watching the show. All right. Thanks, Clay. Appreciate it. And we'll be back with another guest next week. See ya.